They saw the tattoo and rolled their eyes. A phoenix rising from flames across a nurse's shoulder at the downtown hospital. Surely just artwork, but they didn't know what it meant or where it came from. Not yet. And they thought she was just a night shift nurse, just a woman with tired eyes and artistic ink, until a wounded Marine caught a glimpse of her shoulder and whispered, "Reaper 6." The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in Denver General Hospital's emergency department, a typical urban medical center where ambulances lined up at the bay doors and doctors moved with practiced urgency. Rows of gurneys sat waiting. Medical staff rushed, called out orders, saved lives, and in the background, moving efficiently between trauma bays, was a woman in navy blue scrubs with her sleeves rolled up and a stethoscope around her neck. And Elena Rodriguez, 38, registered nurse, the kind of medical professional that patients trusted, but colleagues barely noticed. Her shoes were comfortable but worn, her badge organized with multiple certifications, her voice calm but authoritative when speaking to families. She carried no visible signs of her past. She worked nowhere near military facilities. Her Honda Civic had nursing school stickers and a healthcare hero bumper magnet. And aside from one detailed piece of body art, an intricately inked phoenix rising from flames just visible above her scrub neckline, she was completely unremarkable. "She's got some serious ink on her shoulder," one of the younger residents whispered during a break, glancing at the security monitor that showed staff areas. "Phoenix tattoo. Pretty dramatic for a nurse," and snickering followed from other medical students. Elena ignored it, as she always did. She moved through Denver General like a dedicated professional. Well respected by the attending physicians who appreciated her competence, invisible to the hospital administrators who saw only productivity numbers, and considered dependable but unexciting by the younger staff who gossiped during shift changes. She had been working at Denver General for 4 years. Same schedule every week, 3 12-hour night shifts, Thursday through Saturday, emergency department, trauma bay assignments. The attending doctors knew her clinical skills were exceptional. Trauma stabilization, advanced life support, critical care protocols. The charge nurses knew she never complained about overtime or difficult patients. But none of them knew her real name. And not one suspected what she'd done before, appearing in their hospital like a highly qualified ghost. That was exactly how Elena wanted it. Professional. Competent. Safe until Thursday night. It was supposed to be just another shift in the controlled chaos that defined emergency medicine. The trauma bay was busier than usual, filled with the evening rush of accidents, overdoses, and domestic violence calls that marked urban healthcare. Elena was prepping an IV line when the paramedics rolled in their latest patient, a young man in camouflage fatigues, conscious but bleeding from multiple shrapnel wounds, and Marine Lance Corporal, IED blast, multiple fragment injuries. The lead paramedic called out as they transferred him to the trauma bed. Stable vitals, conscious and alert, Elena moved with practiced efficiency, cutting away the damaged uniform to assess wounds. The Marine's eyes followed her movements, noting the precision of her technique, the way she anticipated the doctor's needs before being asked. Professional competence that suggested more than nursing school training. Then he saw it. The phoenix tattoo, fully visible now with her scrub top pulled aside for easier movement. Knight's quite URM, not just artwork. The flames contained coordinates. The bird's wings showed tactical symbols, and at the base of the design, barely visible script that read Operation Phoenix. The Marine's eyes widened. His breathing changed, not from pain but from recognition. "Ma'am," he whispered, voice barely audible over the equipment alarms. "Permission to speak?" Elena glanced down, noting his sudden tension. "What is it, soldier?" He looked directly at her tattoo, then back to her eyes. Are you Reaper 6? Every instrument in the trauma bay seemed to go silent. The attending physician continued working, oblivious to the exchange. But Elena's hand stopped moving for exactly 2 seconds, enough for a trained observer to notice. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said quietly, resuming her clinical tasks. And the Marine studied her face with the intensity of someone whose life had once depended on recognizing friendly operatives in hostile territory. "Operation Phoenix. Syria, 2018. Reaper 6 saved my entire unit when we were pinned down outside Raqqa. Elena's grip tightened almost imperceptibly on the IV catheter. You're confused. I'm a nurse. You were Air Force pararescue, he continued, his voice gaining strength despite his injuries. They called you the Angel of Death because you'd drop into any hot zone to pull out wounded. That phoenix? It's not just a tattoo. The trauma bay suddenly felt smaller. Elena was aware of other staff members within earshot, of security cameras, of the careful life she'd built beginning to crack under the weight of recognition. Focus on healing, she said firmly. That's all that matters now. But the Marine wasn't finished. Ma'am, you saved my life once, in Syria. I was bleeding out in a bombed building, and you rappelled down from a helicopter under enemy fire. You carried me to the extraction point on your back. Elena completed the IV insertion with hands that had steadied for muscle memory rather than nursing training. Combat medic reflexes, not civilian medical education. Shu, rest now, she said, checking his chart. Dr. Martinez will take good care of you. As she moved to leave the trauma bay, the Marine called out one more time, "Thank you, Reaper 6. For then and for now, Elena didn't turn around, but every staff member who heard the exchange was now staring at the Phoenix tattoo with new understanding. It wasn't artwork. It was a war memorial, and the quiet night nurse they'd worked alongside for 4 years was something far more dangerous and heroic than any of them had imagined. Word spread through the hospital like medical gossip always did, quickly and with growing embellishment. By morning shift change, half the emergency department had heard about the Marine's recognition of Elena Rodriguez. By the next evening, theories were circulating about her real background. But Elena returned to work the following Thursday as if nothing had happened. Same scrubs, same professional demeanor, same efficient patient care. Except now, when she moved through the trauma bays, people watched her differently. The way she assessed injuries suggested field medicine under pressure. Her comfort with emergency procedures indicated experience beyond civilian healthcare. And that Phoenix tattoo had transformed from personal decoration into evidence of a classified past. Dr. Sarah Chen, the emergency department chief, approached Elena during a rare, quiet moment. "That Marine from last week," she said carefully. "He asked about you, called you by some kind of code name." Elena continued reviewing patient charts. "People say a lot of things when they're injured and disoriented. Reaper 6, Dr. Chen's voice was direct, and Operation Phoenix. Those sound like military designations." Elena looked up from the charts. "Ma'am, I'm a registered nurse with 4 years of emergency experience. My personnel file is complete and available for your review." "Your personnel file goes back exactly 4 years," Dr. Chen observed. "Before that, there's nothing. No previous employment, no educational transcripts older than your nursing program. For someone with your level of trauma expertise, that's unusual." The conversation was interrupted by ambulance sirens. Elena stood immediately, transitioning into emergency mode. "We have incoming trauma. Do you want to continue this discussion, or shall we save lives?" Dr. Chen watched as Elena moved toward the ambulance bay with the fluid precision of someone trained for combat medicine rather than civilian healthcare. The question would have to wait, but Elena's carefully constructed anonymity was unraveling. The Marine's recognition had opened a door that couldn't easily be closed. Other veterans in the hospital, both staff and patients, began studying her with new attention, the way she moved under pressure, her comfort with traumatic injuries, the clinical detachment that suggested experience with battlefield medicine, and that Phoenix tattoo, now understood as more than decoration, marked her as someone who had once dropped into the most dangerous places on Earth to save lives under enemy fire. The following week brought confirmation that Elena's secret was spreading beyond the hospital. She arrived for her Thursday shift to find a man in a business suit waiting in the staff parking garage. Mid-50s, gray hair, eyes that suggested government employment and security clearances. "And Major Rodriguez," he said without preamble. "We need to talk." Elena didn't break stride toward the hospital entrance. "I think you have me confused with someone else. Operation Phoenix, 2018. Reaper 6, Air Force pararescue." His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being taken seriously. "Your cover's been compromised." Elena stopped walking. In the fluorescent lighting of the parking garage, her Phoenix tattoo was clearly visible above her scrub neckline. "Who are you?" "Colonel James Mitchell, Defense Intelligence Agency, and you're supposed to be dead." The words hung in the air between them like a medical diagnosis that changed everything. Elena had spent 4 years building a new identity, creating a safe life far from the classified operations that had defined her military career. Now that careful construction was collapsing because a wounded Marine had recognized her ink. "I am dead," Elena said quietly. "Major Elena Rodriguez died in Syria. I'm just a nurse now, a nurse who has the most classified tattoo in U.S. military history," Mitchell replied. "That phoenix contains coordinates to operations that are still buried above top secret. And now a hospital full of people knows you're alive." Elena glanced around the parking garage, noting security cameras and potential escape routes with the automatic assessment of someone trained in hostile territory survival. "What do you want?" "We want to bring you back. There's a situation developing that requires someone with your specific skill set." Mitchell held up a tablet displaying satellite imagery that Elena recognized as Middle Eastern terrain. "And Operation Phoenix was just the beginning. I gave enough," Elena said firmly. "I came home, got out, built a new life. I'm done with classified operations. You saved 127 American lives during your 3 years in pararescue," Mitchell continued. "You hold the record for hot zone extractions under enemy fire. The Phoenix tattoo marks you as one of the most elite combat medics in military history." Elena stared at the satellite images, recognizing the tactical significance of what she was seeing. In mountains, compounds, extraction points that would require exactly the kind of high-risk medical operations she'd once specialized in. "How many?" she asked quietly. 17 American hostages. Medical personnel, doctors and nurses captured while providing humanitarian aid. Mitchell's voice carried the weight of lives hanging in the balance. "They're being held in terrain that only someone with your background could navigate. Send Delta Force. Send SEAL Team 6. Send anyone except me. The hostages include medical staff. They'll need immediate trauma care during extraction. Combat medics can't provide the level of care required." Mitchell paused. "We need someone who's both an elite operator and a qualified nurse." Elena looked toward the hospital, where she'd spent 4 years healing civilians instead of preparing soldiers for battle. Inside those walls, she saved lives through medical expertise and compassionate care. The work Mitchell was describing would require her to return to a world where saving lives meant dropping into war zones under enemy fire. "I need time to think." "You have 24 hours, Mitchell said, handing her a secure phone. "After that, we proceed without you." As Mitchell disappeared into the shadows of the parking garage, Elena stood alone under the fluorescent lights, her phoenix tattoo catching the artificial glow. The mythical bird rising from flames seemed appropriate. She'd thought her military life was dead and buried, but recognition by a wounded Marine had brought it back to life. Now she had to decide whether Elena Rodriguez the nurse could coexist with Reaper 6 the warrior, or if accepting Mitchell's mission would mean the death of one identity to resurrect the other. The answer would determine not just her future, but the lives of 17 hostages who needed someone willing to risk everything to bring them home. And Elena's shift that night felt different. Every trauma case reminded her of battlefield injuries. Every emergency procedure echoed combat medicine protocols. When a car accident victim arrived with multiple traumatic injuries, her assessment and treatment followed patterns learned in military field hospitals rather than civilian nursing education. Dr. Chen noticed the change. "You're moving differently tonight," she observed during a brief break between patients. "More tactical." Elena paused in updating patient charts. "Just focused on providing the best care possible. That Marine last week got to you, didn't he?" Dr. Chen's voice carried the insight of someone who'd spent years reading people under pressure. "Whatever he recognized in you, it's affecting how you work." Before Elena could respond, the trauma bay alarm sounded. Incoming GSW, multiple victims, gang-related shooting. As they prepared for the casualties, Elena's movements shifted into combat medic mode, efficient, precise, emotionally detached in the way that allowed military medical personnel to function under fire. The first victim was a teenager, conscious, but bleeding heavily from a chest wound. Elena's assessment was immediate and comprehensive, her treatment decisions reflecting trauma protocols learned in war zones, rather than hospital training programs. Pneumothorax, moderate blood loss, possible cardiac involvement. She reported to Dr. Chen with the clipped precision of military medical communications. Dr. Chen watched Elena work with growing recognition. The clinical detachment, the comfort with severe trauma, the way she anticipated complications that civilian nurses typically wouldn't consider, all pointed to experience beyond nursing school. As they stabilized the victim, Dr. Chen made a decision. "Elena, I need to see you in my office after this shift." 3 hours later, Elena sat across from Dr. Chen in the emergency department's administrative office. Between them on the desk was Elena's personnel file, deliberately thin and carefully constructed. 4 years ago, you appeared in Denver with perfect nursing credentials and no verifiable history. Dr. Chen began. Your clinical skills suggest trauma experience that can't be explained by civilian education. And now a wounded Marine recognizes you from military operations. Elena maintained the poker face that had kept her alive during classified missions. "Ma'am, I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "You're military. Special operations, based on what I've observed. And you're using nursing as cover for something." The secure phone Mitchell had given Elena buzzed in her pocket. Decision time was approaching. "Dr. Chen, if I were to tell you that serving in this hospital has been the most meaningful work of my life, would that be enough?" "Not if you're planning to disappear," Dr. Chen replied. "Because that man in the suit who was asking about you suggests your past is catching up." Elena stood to leave, then paused at the office door. "If I were to hypothetically not return for my next shift, would you be able to manage trauma coverage?" Dr. Chen's expression confirmed that she understood. "Elena, whatever you're considering, remember that you've saved dozens of lives here. This hospital, these patients, they need you too." "Sometimes saving lives requires making difficult choices," Elena replied. "Thank you for everything you've taught me." As Elena left the hospital for what might be the last time, the phoenix tattoo on her shoulder seemed to burn with relevance. The mythical bird was consumed by flames before rising again, transformed and renewed. She had 18 hours to decide whether Elena Rodriguez, the nurse, would die so that Reaper 6 could live again, or if there was a way for both identities to coexist in a world that needed healers willing to fight for those who couldn't save themselves. The 17 hostages waiting in hostile territory wouldn't care about her internal struggle. They just needed someone brave enough to come get them. And sometimes, Elena realized, the greatest act of healing required returning to war. And Elena spent her remaining decision hours walking through Denver's quiet streets, her mind cycling between two incompatible identities. Elena Rodriguez, night shift nurse, apartment dweller, quiet civilian who saved lives through medical care and compassionate presence. Reaper 6, Air Force pararescue, classified operative, warrior healer who dropped into the most dangerous places on Earth. The secure phone buzzed at exactly 2,200 hours. Elena answered without checking the caller ID and decision time major. Mitchell's voice was direct. "If I say yes, what happens to my life here? Your cover remains intact." As far as anyone knows, Elena Rodriguez took a temporary leave for family emergency. When you return, you resume your hospital position. And if the mission goes wrong, then Elena Rodriguez disappears, and no one asks questions. Your hospital colleagues will assume you moved away for personal reasons. Elena looked up at the Denver skyline, thinking about the patients she'd treated, the lives she'd saved through civilian medicine. The hostages, what's their medical status? 2 physicians, 3 nurses, 12 aid workers. They've been held for 6 weeks. We have intelligence suggesting deteriorating health conditions and limited medical supplies. Professional medical instincts warred with hard-earned civilian peace. Elena had spent 4 years proving that she could heal without fighting, save lives without risking her own in combat operations. But 17 medical personnel were suffering because they'd chosen to help others in dangerous territory. Extraction timeline? 72 hours from mission start. In and out, minimal footprint. Your medical expertise focused on hostage stabilization during transport. Elena closed her eyes, seeing the faces of hospital patients who'd trusted her with their lives. Then, imagining medical personnel held captive because they'd tried to provide humanitarian aid. "I need guarantees," she said finally. "When this is over, I return to my life here. No more calls, no more missions. Reaper 6 dies permanently. Agreed. This is a one-time activation. Elena looked down at her phoenix tattoo, visible in the streetlight. The bird rising from flames, transformed but reborn. Maybe some transformations weren't meant to be permanent. Maybe healing sometimes required temporary returns to fighting. Send me the mission parameters, she said. Reaper 6 is operational. 3 hours later, Elena Rodriguez left a brief message with Dr. Chen's voicemail about a family emergency requiring immediate travel. She packed a single bag with civilian clothes, left her apartment key with the building manager, and drove to a location that didn't exist on any map. By sunrise, she was airborne toward a classified destination, wearing gear she hadn't touched in 4 years, carrying medical supplies designed for battlefield trauma care. The phoenix tattoo was appropriate, she realized. Sometimes death and rebirth weren't permanent states, but temporary transitions required by circumstances beyond individual control. Elena Rodriguez, the nurse, would return to Denver General Hospital. But first, Reaper 6 had 17 lives to save. The mythical bird had always been about transformation in service of renewal. And sometimes the greatest healing required temporary destruction of the healer's peace. Below the aircraft, hostile territory waited. But so did medical personnel who'd sacrificed their safety to help others, and who now needed someone willing to sacrifice their own carefully constructed peace to bring them home. And Elena Rodriguez was flying toward war zones again. But she was also flying toward the most important medical mission of her career. If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden heroes walking among us. What do you think was Elena's right choice? Drop your theories in the comments.